Hey guys, this is Jen Radz from Our Change of Art, and today I'll be making a card for my friend Kelly. She's getting married this weekend, and she's one of my best friends from high school, so I really want to make her something special. The only problem is that I have no ideas at this point. I don't usually on these intro videos, I have a technique that I want to share, or maybe some kind of product I'll use that I want to show you, but I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss for ideas at this point. So I guess we just have to cross our fingers and hope I can come up with something nice. Let's get started. So since I don't really have any plan, I just started looking around on my desk to see if there was anything I can use. And I found a strip of this. I actually don't even know what cardstock collection it came from. I'll have to double check on that one. And I found these letters that I never put away, and it's pretty awesome because this pretty much matches the greenish color at the bottom here. And there was also a card base under a pile of stuff, and I'm happy that I had this. I don't know if this was from another project and it got abandoned somewhere along the way, but that's one step I don't have to do. And this is, I believe, the thick 110-pound cardstock from Michaels, and I've been enjoying using it so far. Make sure you get the heavy. It's 110. Don't get the junky stuff, just like the regular cheap one. You have to get the one that's a little bit more expensive, but it is certainly worth it. So before I started here, I went through all those letters, and I found K, and then an ampersand, and then D. So this is for Kelly and Dave. I want to incorporate those. And I think I want to do some heat embossing and some watercoloring. So let's see if we can get something going here. All right, I'll put these off to the side. I've got a scrap piece of cardstock here. This is what I love when I have a messy desk, is that there are things just floating around for me to use. All right, so I took out this Delicate Blossom set from Hero Art, and I'm going to be using a stamp press so that I can get like a really good solid impression. There's a lot of detail in these flowers. And I don't think I'm going to use this as is. I don't know, I might cut out those flowers. We'll see what happens. So I'll just get this mounted up there. And before I go ahead and ink this up, I'm going to grab some cornstarch that I have. Maybe you've seen me do this before. This is instead of using a powder bag. A powder bag works fine, but I never got around to buying one. And this container of cornstarch I think will last me like 20 years or something. So it just prevents the static from holding on to the embossing powder. Okay, so I'll just put a nice thin little coat on there with a brush. And that's just one of my junky old brushes. And I'll be inking up the stamp in some Versamark. I want to make sure that I get all areas of the stamp really well coated with this ink. And since I'm going to cut it out, it really doesn't matter where I stamp it. And because I have that stamp press, I could really get every part of the stamp contacting the cardstock. Alright, I'll be embossing this in white. I have some Stampendous white embossing powder in one of these little containers. Give me a moment, I'll do that, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, well, I am all embossed, and I'm sure this is invisible to you, but you know, I'll angle it around. Maybe you'll see a glimpse of something. And since the embossing is there, it's going to act as a resist for the paint. So here's my watercolor palette. And over here I have some water and a paper towel and some brushes. And I really like painting when I'm going to cut something out because I don't have to be very careful to stay in the lines. So I'm going to start off by just wetting the paper here. Oops, got a little bit of a fuzzy. And this is just going to allow the paint to flow nicely over the surface of the cardstock. Since I'm using a regular cardstock, I don't want to work the paper too much because not only will it warp, but it can also like disintegrate. So there's this really pretty fuchsia color that I have. And I'm just going to put down some base color. I'm not going to worry about real shading. I just want to have like a mottled look of varying intensity of color. When I'm painting like an actual painting, like that I would maybe hang up in the house or something, I have a tendency to freak out over the details and I worry too much about what every little aspect looks like. So this is just really calming for me to let loose and not really worry so much. Just going to add some other colors in here, whatever I think looks nice. And I'm remembering now that it's going to go with this color, but I actually kind of like the contrast. I probably should have considered that before I went with fuchsia, but I think it'll look nice with those greenish blues. Alright, so there's that guy. And now I'm just going to go ahead and finish painting the rest of these. So there I've completed painting, and it looks kind of like a mess, but it'll look prettier once I cut it out. And I also mixed up some colors to match these letters to use as the stem. I'm not sure if I'll need those or not, but you know, I figured paint it while everything is out. And I just want to give you a little tip for whenever you're painting. Never leave your brushes in the water like this. Make sure that when you're done using them, you immediately tap off the excess water and dry off the brush. Because if it's stored in the container, what might happen is the ends of the bristles will bend. And if they ever bend, it's going to be really hard to get them straight again. And if you leave them in water, especially if your water is too warm, then it can actually loosen up the glue and your brush will not last as long. So always take your brushes out whenever you're not using them. And these are my little honeybee scissors, and I love that they can cut little tiny details. So I'm just going to take some time, probably about 5 or so minutes, to cut all these guys out, and we'll see if we could figure out what to do with the rest of the card. So as I cut out all those flowers, and I did use some of the stems and a little bit of the leaves that were kind of hanging off the edges of the closed blooms, I was arranging them onto where I thought they would look cool on the card. So I don't want to forget this positioning, so I'm not sure where I learned this. I'm sure you guys do it too. But I'm just going to use my phone to take a picture of it so I could remember when it's time to reassemble. And the scissors are just here to prevent the card base from popping up. Alright, I'm going to shove all this stuff to the side. And I think I'm definitely going to adhere this paper to the left-hand side. Now the bottom is just a little ripped from when I tore it out of the 6x6 pad, so I'll slice off the edge of that. And then I'll measure this to 5.5 so that it fits along the vertical edge of the card. I just have my ATG here to adhere it. Alright, so there's that. Now I can start putting the flowers back. I'm going to do a combination of adhesive straight to the card, and some are going to be popped up. So I will do that and be right back. My flowers are all adhered down, as is the K. I'll get to that in a second. But I don't know if you can see, for each flower I put regular adhesive. I put some glue at the bottom, and then at the top I put some foam, so it's kind of like 2 levels for each flower, and I think that looks kind of nice. Now I was worried about these letters because they're kind of translucent. It's not too bad. Actually, you can't really even tell unless the light is going through it, but I was worried the adhesive would show, so I gave it a try with the K using the Tombow Mono Multi Glue, and it actually worked just fine. So I'm going to do the same thing here for the D, and I'm going to go around with just teeny tiny little dots. I do not want this to ooze out the side because I hate cleaning it up. So I want to keep everything contained. One dot over here looks a little bit too big, so I'm just going to tap it with my finger to remove some of the excess. And now I'll be able to place this down on my card. I'll use my grid mat to kind of help line things up. And this is going to tuck in underneath that flower and be placed just like this. I'm going to hold it down firmly until the glue sets. It's not going to take very long at all. And while this is drying, let's contemplate the ampersand. I played around with different placement, and I actually think I want this to be floating above the K and D with some foam tape. So I'm assuming that since the glue doesn't show through, that the tape like this won't show through, but I guess we'll just wait and find out. I think this is good. So I'm going to go in and use my scissors just to cut thin little strips. And I'm going to be applying these little guys all over the back of the ampersand so that I can get some really good adhesion to the paper. So I figured out what the deal is. If you're going to place this onto dark cardstock, like this, you could definitely see right through it. But if you're going to put it on white, like I intend on doing, it is camouflage. So we're just going to pop this right on here, slightly overlapping the letters that are there before pushing it down. And there is the finished card. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.